without even knowing The Little Things, which stars Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. We're going to be talking about those three names presumably quite a bit. Without even knowing that The Little Things was originally drafted in the 1990s, you probably could have inferred that. You probably could have inferred that just watching it. This looks and feels like a Seven knockoff to the nth degree. And it's the kind of police procedural studios used to churn out in mass in the 90s alongside erotic thrillers. Like those were, if you go back in the 90s, man, in the fall particularly, that's what they released. It was Basic Instinct or it was Along Came a Spider. Like that was the type of movie they released. It was police procedurals and erotic thrillers, often written by Joe Esterhaz, who wrote Showgirls. But TV is the new home for this material, where you get movies like, or you get stuff like True Detective, or you get stuff like Chicago PD, or one of the other Chicago shows that, you know, they're always shooting around here. And so its month-long release on HBO Max can't help but feel fitting. And I don't know if the hype train with this, because it's accessible on HBO Max, which people are now starting to get, I don't know if that hype train and its accessibility made this movie feel bigger than it was. But guys, let's not make any mistake. I don't even know what you two thought of the movie yet. Let's not make any mistake. This is your typical crappy January movie. That's exactly what this is. This is the typical thing that studios release in the first couple of weeks in theaters. It makes barely any money, and it's gone in a month, and nobody remembers it by the time the snow melts. Am I wrong on this? Dom, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I gonna have to agree with that assessment. Now, another sacrilegious thing here, and just really proving how much of a hack I am. I have not watched this movie. No, I'm kidding. I have not watched Seven. I have actually not watched Seven. The only thing I know about Seven is what's in the box, and apparently that's a big plot point. I don't know. Apparently, I need to watch it. I really do.
Oh, but you watched every Ice Age sequel, didn't you?
I mean, that's a matter of family.
Well, who's the real
man.
film person here then? The Ice Age connoisseur or a person who's seen Seven?
There you go.
Let him talk anyway.
But even having not watched Seven, I agree that, yeah, this is the kind of thing that you would just feel like you would get in the 90s and early 2000s of all these kinds of police detective, you know, being dark, you know, here's the, you know, all the tropes that come with it. And man, there's some hacky dialogue here. Rami Malek does his best with is he doing his best? I don't know. I guess maybe there was just a misdirection because, you know, he's trying to come off with this. He's trying to be the cocky, you know, young detective, but at the same time, he has like a real gruff, reserved point to it. But then it actually goes right into Denzel Washington's character. And it's like, it really mushes together. So it's really difficult to find something unique here other than where the plot leads to, which I will give it praise for that. But just overall, as starting off our discussion here, yeah, it's like the only reason why I can remember Witness is because it had a really cool angle of being an Amish murder kind of detective story, you know, stuff like that. And that's kind of an unfair assessment. But with The Little Things, dude, until Jared Leto shows up, it trudges along like through the muck and the mud that these detectives have to like look through bodies in. And it is not a particularly entertaining first. It felt like an hour before that. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, and this thing is not short either. This thing is 2 hours long. And before I even get into you, Joe, but the first act is like all about positing Denzel's Deke character, this emotionally compromised, gruff hack of a cop, with his fresh-faced replacement, Rami Malek's Jim, which is fine. And then the second act is like trying to uncover and solve this mystery, and Jared Leto's character is the prime suspect. All signs really kind of point to him. There's nobody else who could be murdering. This movie gets you all invested in this murder. But by the third act, you realize that the murder mystery at hand, without going into spoilers, because I don't consider this spoiler territory, the murder mystery is a big MacGuffin. That's all it is. It's a MacGuffin for like psychological trauma, which this movie, I don't like to use this word very often. This movie very pretentiously posits this idea that like cops who have had one too many brushes with the law or have engaged in methods of self-fabrication on cases would be mentally corrupted. No shit. If it were the 90s, which is when this thing was originally written, maybe that would have been groundbreaking. But you've seen it all before, and it's treated as something that's like revolutionary. Am I wrong to think that this is kind of how this movie was posited? Joe, what say you about the little things? General thoughts.
It's one thing for a movie to be bad. It's another for it to be really, really boring. And Steve is hitting the nail on the head here. So is Dom. This is your typical January slog, and I hated watching this movie. I honestly had the worst time watching this. This is it really is just like, let's just crap out a movie that we came up with that was written in the 90s that Spielberg was originally supposed to direct, and then just through time it just sat on a shelf until finally HBO was like, I'm sorry, Warner Brothers, I should say. Warner Brothers was like, all right, well, I guess it's finally time to crank this thing out. Let's get production rolling on it. Oh, it was a pandemic, perfect time to release it. So when it fails, we could just be like, it's just because of the pandemic. That's why I didn't make enough money. This movie, I mean, yeah, it's a slog to sit through. It is 2 hours and 8 minutes, but it feels like almost 2.5 hours at that. It's 3-act structure. It feels like 3 separate films because, yeah, Jared Leto does not come in until about halfway through the movie. And here's the only good thing I'll say about this film. Jared Leto's performance was really damn good in this. I'll give him that. I actually thought he did a phenomenal job as this creepy stalker guy that is the prime suspect. I thought he was very well. I thought he acted it very well. I thought he looked the part. I thought he was really good. It gave me actually hope for just a little bit, but then I thought about what that movie was. It gave me hope that, well, maybe in Suicide Squad he could have been a good Joker. Who knows? But then I remember like the costume he wore and everything, and he has damage right on his forehead. I'm like, you know what? Never mind. But no, he's actually really good in this. What I'm really surprised about is how bad Denzel Washington and Rami Malek are. Together and on is separate. It's the dialogue here and just like how much emotion they really don't have, and it doesn't help too. And I'll get into this later. Their characters, even this whole police department, they are some of the worst people I've ever seen doing police work. They come up with a plan to try and find evidence in Jared Leto's apartment, and by far is the dumbest plan I have ever seen any cops do. And just like realizing how much they mess up in this film, it's like, you guys just suck at your job. Like, no wonder why Rami Malek replaced you, because like you weren't really holding a high standard here at the police department, because he just fits perfectly in terms of being a crappy cop.
And it's really weird because, like, well, particularly with Denzel, right? Usually Denzel is, very charismatic. The worst thing you can say about him is usually like, oh, he was very Denzel in that movie. He's one of those actors
like
nowadays.
In his Equalizer films, like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna bring up. Yeah, exactly. It was like he was doing a 25% Equalizer in this movie, where it's like, but it's really like. It's like really pathetic and not in an entertaining way, not in a very compelling way. And there is a degree of like patheticness integrated into the character. I recognize that. But like, yeah, an hour into this movie. And then here's the thing, to contrast that, you've got Rami Malek, who's just kind of there, right? Because I couldn't decide, like, do you want him to be like the young hotshot? They kind of because he's doing a press conference at first, like, okay, here's where we're going to come together. But then, yeah, these two characters come together really, really fast. And like, usually, as much of a cliche thing as it is, if you're going to go this route, okay, fine. Have them have conflict. And there's a little bit, but it resolves so quickly, you'll miss it in an instant. Yeah. And it's at some point they just become, it's seemingly like best of friends. And I just, that's like 2/3 of this movie is the 3 main characters, and sadly, only one of them is really giving us anything. Leto here to really really, really chew on. And I wonder if, it's really so much that Jared Leto was that great, or if,
was just
by
a
the time we
breath
get
of
to
fresh
him,
air.
it's a relief. It's like an oasis in the desert. Yeah, real quick, going off of Joe's last point with Resident Evil soundtrack. Yeah, dude, I noticed it too. It kind of stuck out. I was like, oh, okay, am I vibing with this? Is it cool? But then I was like, oh, okay, it's like the music from oh my God, the Matt Damon, Gwyneth Paltrow pandemic movie, but it's not pandemic. It's
Contagion.
Contagion. I was like, oh, this is like the movie from Contagion. But that only works because Contagion is like this cold pandemic-based movie. Here, the little things, it's supposed to be like twisted and whatever, and it just doesn't fit. So even the music is, if it doesn't match what it was going for in other movies like, say, Contagion or other things that kind of go with that, it just becomes kind of like filler, kind of like, oh, here's like just bass sounds, like literal like electronic low-level bass sounds, and we're just gonna toy with that.
It's just the
scary.
same song on repeat for every
Yeah.
scene. When they're
It
saying
is.
something motivational, when they're investigating a dead body, when they're questioning Jared Leto, it's the same song.
They're trying to be cool, they're trying to be cynical, or they're trying to be dark, but it all just becomes one note as hell. I don't know, Steve.
No, I'll say this is. I think Joe hated this movie more than the collective of us, and none of us particularly liked
It's
it. From the sound
snowballing.
of it.
I want to say a couple things, but go ahead.
The thing about it is that like the movie isn't. I wouldn't go as far as to say the movie is incompetently made or incompetently acted. It's just boring and bland, and it lacks tension. Now, a movie like this with a lackluster script could be saved by the performances, and we've dug in a little bit. I'm going to disagree with Joe here. First and foremost, we can get this out of the way. I think Denzel sleepwalks through this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't do anything really remarkable. Rami Malek's character, I think, is too broad to really resonate, and if I really wanted to be mean, I could say this is what happens when Rami Malek can't just lip sync his way through a movie, but I won't go there.
Oh.
But no, I still think Rami Malek's a fine actor, but he's not given, his character doesn't have much to work with here. He's good at the end. I'll say that. In the third act, he's pretty good at the end when he's more about his actions and his mannerisms than he is about his words. I'll give him that. He's better at the end. I'm getting really tired personally of Jared Leto overplaying every role. I'm getting really tired.
I rolled my eyes.
He's straining. I know like he doesn't have a ton to work with as a character, but he's like straining at this point, in my opinion, to be Joaquin Phoenix, and he's not. And you get that here. He feels very overplayed. I know some people are going to disagree with me on that. Jared Leto didn't show me anything he hasn't shown me before.
Yeah.
And his style now is like straining to become this like very ultra method actor in particular ways. But I don't think he does anything compelling with this character. There's not much to him. There's not much to the suspect character.
He
doesn't
put a
do
cool
anything.
limp to his walk, okay? He put a cool limp to his walk. That was method acting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's not terrible here, but I don't think he's anything special here. He certainly doesn't lift the movie. I don't think he elevates even in his scenes. I don't think he elevates them. It's kind of just like you look like a stereotypical grungy serial killer suspect. And that's how you're kind of acting. You're not giving any personality to the role, but in defense, your co-stars aren't either.
And even though we disagree on that, you're not going to come and... I'm not coming over here. I'm not defending this movie, right? You can be like, you want to take Jared Leto down with it? Go right ahead. You're not going to see me complain. Because, I'll give you that, too. He doesn't do anything amazing. To me, he was just good. He was fine. It was the one thing of the film that I was looking forward to. Probably because, you know what, man? I'll even say it. Near the end of the movie, I was rooting for him. I was like, these cops are so stupid. I hope you just keep messing with them and proving them wrong. But yeah,
every character that isn't Jared Leto is just stupid in this movie.
Honestly,
like, doing the worst decisions.
He does look like a basic like Charles Manson like knockoff with the long hair and everything, and he looks like he just got out of a cult wearing his white robes and everything that he wears to work and every day after. But it's just like they didn't do anything. He didn't do anything exceptional with it. But it's like in terms of everybody as far as acting, he was putting the most, I think, in, honestly, because Denzel was sleepwalking through this. I completely agree with that.
You know, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just going to throw this out here too. for as long as this movie is, there's like a couple tangents this thing doesn't really capitalize on. And Dom, you don't have to follow this up. I just feel like mentioning this. Like, religion is a particular focal point in this movie. In a couple shots, there's more than one scene of Deke driving by and like staring at the Hollywood cross.
Yeah.
And I kept waiting. I kept waiting for that to have some relevance. And they like to mention that Jim is a God-fearing man. They like to mention that Rami Malek's Jim is a religious guy.
They don't. I don't remember that.
They
didn't really accentuate it.
They do when Deke is being not introduced but told about Jim. They say he's a real God-fearing man and this and that. But like, there's a really weird fixation on religion that never gets addressed or has any significance on the narrative. It's got no bearing on the plot. Like Deke staring at that Hollywood cross bugged the hell out of me because it's like this. It doesn't culminate in anything. I just wanted to throw that out there. Dom, you're free to make whatever point you'd like.
You know what? I'm with it because it's like introspective brownie points. It's like, oh yeah, we're getting into the minds of these characters.
He's thinking.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, kind of off that, maybe not necessarily so. But you know what movie it felt like it was trying to be, or rather, it reminded me of. But let me tell you what, this comparison will fall apart, and for a good reason. But like, you know what? It reminded me of Just Mercy. Except Just Mercy is a vastly superior movie. Now, obviously, very different themes and what they're going for. But with these two movies, Just Mercy and The Little Things, you have movies that visit, I believe, like the 80s or 90s, and they're kind of procedurals in their own way. In Just Mercy's case, a justice procedural, lawyer procedural, kind of like a To Kill a Mockingbird, which they reference in the movie, kind of that kind of approach. And Little Things is, of course, as we've been harping on, is a police detective murder mystery procedural. And it's seemingly like Just Mercy, because the worst thing we had to say about Just Mercy is that it kind of goes through a lot of the beats. But the thing about Just Mercy is that those beats were entertaining as hell to watch. The performances were damn good, and the writing supported it enough where, yeah, it wasn't particularly, a breath of fresh air, but damn, if there's a reason why we love this kind of stuff, The cinematography, it wasn't particularly flashy or, as something like Promising Young Woman, but they had some really cool shots of introspection. They had some very, very interesting, angles and how they wanted to accentuate the characters and how they were feeling in that moment. I didn't feel any of that with The Little Things. It's, funny enough, it's the little things that really culminate. I guess that's the message of the movie here, which was that, hey, the little things in this movie did not pull through. So it's just really, when they go missing, you get a not so great movie. So that's the message behind The Little Things.
To your point on Just Mercy, too, the performances show how you can elevate formula.
Yes.
Of that movie, undoubtedly. Jamie Foxx, I thought, gave a career performance in that, along with Michael B. Jordan, and they elevated themselves above formula. We'll kind of slowly work our way to closing thoughts. Any other points you want to bring up, Joe, before we kind of go that route? Any other points you want to bring up about this movie? Any kind points?
God, man, I'm trying to even think here. Kind points. Dude,
it's not that bad, Joe.
No, I really hated this movie.
It's not that bad. I'll say that much. It's not that bad. There's just nothing really special to it. I didn't find the cinematography terrible. It's set in the 90s, but it has no reason to be set in the 90s other than the fact that it was written then.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, oh, hey, screw it. Like, we're just not going to change anything here.
It's true, though. There's no reason for this thing to be set in the 90s.
She's right. It was written in the 90s, but at the same time, it's like...
Well, here's the thing. And I'll come in defense of the film here. That stupid plan they had where, they get in Jared Leto's apartment would have never worked in modern day because somebody could have just easily called up on a cell phone to tell the person, get out of there.
Yeah.
So, like, there you go.
True.
Because that one scene was hinging on that. And there's a bunch of uses of payphones in this movie. That's why, too.
That's true.
Yeah, they had to give all the extra pay phones that were lurking in like back lots and stuff some purpose.
I got really nothing else really positive to say. I got more negative stuff to say, but like I've already harped on the movie long enough, man. Like I really don't. I wasn't even looking forward to this. This was just kind of like something on the lineup of HBO Max.
It's just the start of the year. I think wait until the summer. You're gonna see some serious shit. Right?
Maybe I will. And maybe I'll look back at the little things and be like, you know what? You're okay to go through.
Well, and the thing is, like, this doesn't lessen my excitement for a handful of HBO Max movies that we're going to get, or Warner movies we will see on HBO Max. It didn't lessen my expectations whatsoever. But, like, again, I felt that this movie was hyped because of the fact of its accessibility. Because, like, it was trending for a couple days on Twitter. A lot of people were talking about it. A lot of discourse online. A lot of my friends were asking me about it. More so than I think if it were just a regular January. And this just happened to be in theaters. I also think it stands as a testament of Denzel as an actor, because Denzel does not ordinarily do a lot of bad movies. He's famously choosy about what he does, and he's got a right to be. But like this, I go to the theater, I used to at least. I go to the movie theater, 50 to 90 times a year. And in the month of January. This is exactly what I expect to see in January, and to some degree. This is something that's not very compelling, clearly doesn't have a ton of heart in the script, and clearly doesn't have a lot unique about it. And it'll be, like I said, it'll be forgotten by the time the snow melts. That's exactly what this is. It's not offensively bad, but it's boring, which is sometimes worse than being offensively bad.
Yeah, that's really the greatest sin here. It's closing up. I'm just gonna go back to my Just Mercy comparison, and that the worst thing I can say about this movie, it's not hot steaming pile of garbage that is getting all over the neighborhood. I don't think so at all. But it does commit the unique sin of just being there, and it felt lazy, which I don't like saying, because people worked hard on this movie for sure. Don't get me wrong, and I don't want to offend, all the working class folks behind it. But at the same time, the end result, man, you can't tell me you look at Denzel and be like, there are like maybe 2 or 3 seconds where he starts to get a little equalizer, and that's not even a compliment, but at least it's coming out of his slumber, So it's like, whatever. And again, it sucks because it becomes frustrating, because you have a genuinely interesting plot, and the direction of where that plot goes was, where it culminates, actually, to be honest with you, if it had been executed a little differently, that ending, or that, twist or whatever, could be groundbreaking. Maybe not groundbreaking, but it could be something else. And I can see Exactly. And, I can see why I can at least guess as to why people on Twitter were like, oh, damn, I didn't see that coming, or it's like, this is very potent or whatever. And it's like, maybe, but I don't think the path to get there was nothing at all. And sadly, it just culminates into a very blah and blasé movie that, which unfortunately, like seeing again with Just Mercy, you could see it. You can really do something, even if it's a procedural, or even if it's kind of something that we've seen before. So, I'll 2 out of 4 stars for this one.
That's my star rating too. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like how we just kind of casually give our closing our arguments. We don't like kind of spiel like we used to. I kind of like this more.
There's not much to spiel there, except what I just
did. There really isn't a high horse to climb on with this. It's 2 out of 4 stars with me. It's not awful. I don't know if I don't think it's gonna make my worst list. At the end of the year, it's not memorable. We're gonna forget about this come March.
If it does make our worst list, it's a good year.
Fair. I'll say that. I'll say that. because after having to struggle making my worst list for last year, I was like, yeah, it wasn't a great year, but it was definitely better. I didn't have to have like an easy set worst list. But Joe, what's your star rating?
It's 1 star.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
I really did. I think the twist at the end of the movie too, and like, you know, the whole like revelation of like, you know, the whole message of the film. I was just kind of like, this is just stupid. This is,
You like Jared Leto's performance enough. You stood on a hill for him. He don't get a half.
like I say, that 1 star goes to him and like the people who worked on the film. Like, I'm sure they did it, like, you know, their jobs right. They put lights in places and pointing cameras at things, like, you know, they did that. But like,
Joe, did the ending actually make you angry
Yes.
in the potential and the audacity of like how it wound up?
yes. Kind
It
of.
actually triggered something in your mind.
I was just like sitting there. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is how it's actually gonna end.
Okay.
And then like how it all wraps
I understand.
up and everything. I'm just like, this is what we were building all towards. Like, you know, this whole revelation of like this. The thing is like, if I were to say the ending out of context in any other movie that would probably be done better, it's a bold choice to do. But for like what this movie was building up to and then what it concludes to, it just doesn't work here. It just falls even lower when it does that. I was just like, damn, like, you know, you could have given this to any other, because I don't want to harp on John Lee Hancock, because I do like Saving Mr. Banks. I'm even a sucker I'm a sucker for The Blind Side too. All right, I'll even say it.
He did The Founder too, didn't he? He did The Founder as well.
That's a great film as well. And it's like, he's done great films. It's just like, here I feel like if you would have given it to somebody who's more familiar with crime movies, because even his Netflix film, The Highwayman, with Harrelson and what's his name? Kevin Costner, like, that wasn't that great either. But for me, it's 1 star. I just thought it was a mess of a movie, man. Something that you typically see in January. It's just that, for me, when I see the typical January garbage, it's usually like 2 stars. This just went lower for some reason. I don't know why.
I think that throws your scale out of whack. I honestly do. But at the same time, I understand the frustration. I actually see that when you say
I get it too. And I think the other offensive part too, and this is like, we'll kind of wrap up and stuff. But the last point I'll make too is that the other problem is that, like, the movie did not establish enough entertainment nor character equity for that ending to suffice. There's no real tension in this movie either. Like, and then when it tries to lure you away from, like, because we spent a good long while trying to figure out to solve this mystery, and then it starts to slowly become more geared towards the Rami Malek's gym and Denzel's Deke. It starts to become more concerned on them, their well-being, their mental health, and like the choices they're gonna make. And then once it gets there and it leaves on this cryptic ending, it's like, we really just spent an hour and 15 minutes on this rote sort of murder mystery, only for this movie to end with a goddamn hairpin. Like, you know, like,
which could have been cool. Could have been really cool,
but like, the mystery isn't solved, and we didn't learn anything thematically we haven't already seen. That's the cut and dry of this, you know. But
it's all in the execution. It's all in the execution.
I didn't not foresee at all this leading to a pretty charged discussion, but it absolutely did, and I thank you men for that.